Welcome to We Talk, where we talk about any and everything as a family.
As a family.
Today we're going to be talking about
Wait for it.
when is assisted suicide? Okay.
Why are you so peppy about this?
When is assisted suicide? Okay.
That's more like it. So, my thoughts on the issue. Let's lay down some groundwork here. So, assisted suicide is legal in the United States, but only in a handful of states. It's legal in some other countries, but that doesn't matter. And there are actually strict terms on when assisted suicide is actually viable. And basically you have to have a life-threatening illness. You have to only have 6 months to a year left to live. You have to constantly express the desire to want to die, I guess. And the last one, you have to take the drugs yourself. So a physician will prescribe you a lethal dose of some drug. I don't know which drug. You have to take the drug yourself. So that's all the necessary stipulations. And I don't know, I personally feel that's a little too rigid. Because say you have 2 years left to live, supposedly, or say your illness isn't terminal, but it's
Incapacity.
yeah, it just completely decimates your quality of life. I heard this story about a lady who had tinnitus. Is that the ringing in the ears?
Yeah.
She had it so bad that every day was just miserable for her, so she killed herself. And there are people who would think oh, your ears are ringing, that's no reason to end your life. But for her it was completely debilitating. I'm sure she couldn't do anything. She couldn't enjoy life. She had to sit at home in the quiet just so she didn't have constant headaches. So I don't know. I feel the rules are a little too strict. I feel assisted suicide should be more accepted, I guess.
There should be less requirements.
I suppose so.
Or
Yeah.
less formal requirements.
If you can prove that your quality of life has degraded significantly enough because of an illness per se, then I feel that should be cause enough. And then if you're in a rational state of mind, I don't think a paranoid schizophrenic. Well, yeah,
I agree.
I don't think somebody who has excuse me. I don't think somebody who has an issue like that should be allowed to.
Right, I agree, because they're not capable of making a rational decision.
Yeah, you have to be of sound mind to make the decision.
Lucid.
I kind of feel if we're sticking with the basic rules of the physician, this, that, and the third, I think who better to determine whether your quality of life really is than a physician, and aside from yourself. The physician would be able to gauge the amount of pain and suffering that you are in, and they should know to some extent what you're going to be capable of, in your day-to-day life. If you can't get up and move,
But they're not with you every day. They're not in your shoes. They don't know how bad things are.
I agree.
Also,
but
physicians. There's a problem of physicians not believing or caring about their patients.
But if you get to the point of assisted suicide, clearly the physician realizes that you are in dire pain and it's not going to get better. I mean, we're at that point.
What about if somebody is, let's say, a quadriplegic? So they have no use of their body below their neck, right? Would that be a sufficient, I don't know, reason for opting for assisted suicide?
I guess
you?
that would depend
Because-
on the I mean, like I said, with the
Depends on the person.
definition that you've given, the physician has to do this. So that would depend on the physician, how the physician felt about the situation.
I mean, because that's like a very steep decline in quality of life. There
But
there
you
may
know
not
what?
be like
They're
physical
not-
pain,
Exactly, that's
but
what I was going to say.
there is that psychological suffering.
I
element
agree
to it.
with that, but is that a reason just because you're suffering psychologically?
And there's no way for it to get better.
Well,
But
there's no
your
into this
psyche could get better. I mean, you could change your attitude about
But your
Your
quality of life
situation.
will never.
your
Yeah.
quality of life may not never. I mean, you know what? I'm kind of thinking about. I don't know if y'all remember him. Is his name Mr. Ted?
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, I'm thinking about him. I mean, I've not personally talked to him, but he seemed pretty, he well adjusted to his situation.
I mean, but you don't know what kind of demons he had in his head.
That's true. No, I don't know what kind of demons he had in his head. But, I mean, some people can adjust and feel like,
and
living.
that's why I said it's up to the person to decide.
Let's see.
In that circumstance, I don't think it'd be like immediately after the incident or whatever happened to cause you to be like that. I don't think like you immediately get to decide because
I agree,
then again, like your view of yourself is so morphed and your mentality is such like it's in such a bad place that you would have to wait it out a little bit and see like, is this really something that I want to commit to?
I mean, but if assisted suicide were an option and that person knew that they just had to wait for like a certain grace period of being a quadriplegic, wouldn't they just be like keeping that mentality of like, all right, well, like 3 more years until I can die?
No, have you ever been mad and then you talk to someone and you're like, and they're like, I know you're trying to smile, and you're like, I don't want to smile. But you smile anyway.
I mean,
Because, like, there are things that can happen in that time period that change your perspective on life.
that's true.
But you could also engineer your situation to where those things just don't happen. Like, there are some people who live an unhappy life, and whether they know it or not, they don't want to be happy. They set things up so they can't be
Then
happy.
At that point, wouldn't they just, if they wanted the assisted suicide so bad, wouldn't they just commit suicide?
They're quadriplegic. They need help. I mean,
I
somebody's
mean-
going to have to help them. I mean,
They can.
in this particular circumstance,
There are
I'm
things
kind
that
of
you
focusing
could
on the
do.
quadriplegic.
I mean, well, you could like roll the wheelchair into a swimming pool, but like
Yeah.
that's, that sucks. That's a bad
That is
idea.
awful.
That's awful. That is an awful idea.
Yes.
So, I don't know. Like there are some people, and I'm thinking of a fictional person in particular who they have the idea that like, okay, in this certain amount of time I can just quit. And then they're just waiting and biding their time, and they don't try to fix the situation because in their mind they've already given up.
Yeah. I mean, there are going to be people on both ends of the spectrum. People who give it time and they can then focus on the positive and and work it out, and then there's people that's going to have the countdown going on. I mean,
Yeah, but saving at least some people who like feel as if like whose mentality shifts from being so like in such a bad space to being like happier and like actually trying to live with it. Like saving those people is better than just saving no one. Oh my gosh, assisted suicide could also help with like population.
Like just in terms of lessening the population, like I get it. Are there that many people that want to die and who are eligible, who like to where it would actually make a difference? Like, is the number of people who fit the requirements, like, is that number that
I
big?
guess no, it's not that big. Never mind.
So,
I mean, I really don't. I mean, I kind of struggle with whether or not I believe in assisted suicide. I mean, I guess it would have to be like on a case-by-case basis.
yeah.
You know, I know if one of my loved ones were in the situation where they were in constant pain, the quality of life is not going to improve, and they just are ready to go. I mean, then I would probably be like, okay, well, I mean, but people are selfish. You know, we don't want our loved ones to die. There's sometimes when we're like, well,
They're gonna
don't
die.
I know that, but there are times when we're like, no, don't go. I don't want you keep fighting. When they've been fighting for something and they're just tired.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it would depend on where I'm at mentally
Yeah.
as to how I would feel in that moment.
In 2015, in Oregon, one of the states where physician-assisted suicide is actually legal, there was a study done. So I think it's called the Death with Dignity Act.
Yeah, I think it is.
That allows for the assisted suicide, and they tabulated a list of the reasons why people wanted to opt for assisted suicide, and the top 3 reasons didn't even involve like pain or suffering. I guess maybe not like physical pain or physical suffering, or it was loss of quality of life, loss of autonomy, and the loss of their dignity, I guess. To where, like say you have a terminal illness and you're so sick that you can't even care for yourself. Like it's very undignified to constantly be soiling yourself and have someone clean up after you, and then to have
Yes.
someone feed you, and you
Yes.
that can't feel good. Like to just have to accept that.
I mean, but you know what? I mean, in some senses, isn't that like part of just getting old? I mean,
Losing your dignity, I guess.
I mean, I'm not against. I mean, okay, like as far as like working in a nursing home, those people change diapers.
Yeah, but imagine having that at like 26.
Well, I mean, at a young age, I mean, I can understand that. But
Even still, like there are some people, some older people who just don't want to live anymore. Like, because like they are in constant pain, and they can't do things like they once could, and their quality of life is down because their body just like doesn't work correctly anymore, and there is that loss of dignity to where they may be incontinent, like they may not have control over like their bodily functions anymore, like that's really sad to think about, because you can't even begin to imagine. Well, I personally can't begin to imagine what that's like for a person to, I don't know, to look in the mirror and realize like
they were this vibrant person at one point.
like I'm not who I used to be. I'm not
Yeah.
even who I want to be, and I can't ever go back to being that person.
Yeah.
Like this is actually it. Like this is who I am now. I'm the person that needs help, like cleaning myself. I'm the person that needs help eating. Like I'm.
Okay, so what is your view as far as assisted suicide. Do you feel like, what would you like to see in your ideal world as far as assisted suicide?
In my ideal world, no one gets sick. Everyone just wants to live. No one dies.
No one gets sick. Everybody just wants to die though. So.
No. Okay, so in my ideal world, in regards to assisted suicide, such a weird thing to think about.
Yeah, like, why would there be assisted suicide in my ideal world?
No, you
But
know what
no,
I'm asking.
I know what you're asking, and I'm trying to get to that. I think that you wouldn't have to have a terminal illness. Like if you could prove that your quality of life has been significantly diminished permanently, and
But what about cures?
I mean, I guess, but like
For what?
as far as old age,
Well,
there's no cure for that. Like
you got me there.
you could be so old that your quality of life has diminished. Like, and I feel like that's a very valid reason to just want to be done with.
Because a lot of
this.
times once you get old, you also don't want to be a burden to your family.
Yeah, like.
But you also
That's
don't wanna
not
be
me.
a
I'm
parent.
always want to be a burden to my
No, will your family want to put up with that burden? Is
I-
the question.
Hey,
Okay, so-
change me.
What's your
No.
same question?
I feel like what he said was good. Like, if your quality of life is so altered in a negative way that like you cannot fix it, there's nothing you can really do about it, then like I feel like it should be like you should have the decision.
I feel like if you are in your right state of mind,
Yeah,
let's
that's
start with
also
that.
important.
I mean, well, yeah.
And your quality of life is not going, it's been diminished and it's not going to get any better. I feel like you should have the option. I really, really struggle with it, but I feel like you should have the option. If you don't want to continually suffer through the pain and the agony. I mean, if you're just totally miserable, you have no quality of life, you haven't gotten out the bed in years, this, that, and the third. I mean, I feel like you should have the option. I don't feel like you should just be forced to deal with. I mean, it's kind of like you're in jail. I mean, you're in your own prison.
Yeah.
So if that's the way that you're choosing to go out, then hey.
I mean, your body, your choice.
I am pro-choice so that I guess that does make sense.
Well, thank you for joining us today. Try to have a discussion with your family. See if you can get on the same page.
And if not the same page, at least in the same chapter.
If not the same chapter, then tell your family all your secrets and don't just hide them.